Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. Sorry I'm a bit late this time, as I had some issues with my MasterCard bill over the weekend and I've had to get in touch with NatWest to get it sorted out. But now that's out the way, I can do this video. That's Rebecca Ferguson on the screen, and she's Swedish, even though she doesn't look Swedish because she's got red hair. She's about an inch shorter than me, but her husband's about 9 to 10 inches taller than me. But even if I was as rich as Musk and Bezos put together, and she was single and our orbits crossed, would I go with her? Nope. Look at that face. The hostile, go away, not interested in you, dismissive look. I've seen that look far too many times in my adolescence and teenage years when I was in Perth, Western Australia. And I know the signs, and well, look, a woman giving you that kind of look, it's just not even worth approaching her, let alone trying to chat her up. So I wouldn't go with Rebecca there, not a chance. Anyway, enough about her. Looking over the weekend, I found a new term called Relationship Recession. That's doing the rounds in the American academia and in certain circles the American government. So I've had a look around to see where I can find about it. And get that out of the way. I found this. It's, as you can see, the Financial Times. It's the Relationship Recession, as I said, is going global. This was done on the 11th of January this year. It says, there's a reason the birth rates are increasingly predominant feature in discourse and policy making, i.e. the fall in birth rates and guys not dating is becoming an issue. Population aging and decline is one of the most powerful forces in the world, shaping everything from economics, i.e. the workforce, to politics, i.e. government policy, and the environment. I mean, if there's less people around, there's less strain on the environment. But a weakness of the debate, perhaps even the term birth rate itself, is that it implies the goal is the same today as it was in the past. Finding ways to encourage couples to have more children. A closer look at the data suggests a whole new challenge. And then it goes about America between 1960 and 1980, when second and third wave feminism was in America. The average number of children born to a woman halved from almost 4 to 2, even as the share of women in married couples edged only to modest lower. There are still plenty of couples in happy, stable relationships. They are just electing to have smaller families. And we have the graph from the 1960 to 1980, and then from 2000 to 2020, 2025 will be about here. It says, but in recent years, most of the fall is coming from the decisions made by couples, not from decisions made by couples, sorry, but from a marked fall in the number of couples, i.e. guys are not dating, people are not getting married, and women only wanting the top 10 to 1%. Had US rates of marriage and cohabitation remained constant over the past decade, Americans' total fertility rate would be higher today than it was then. No shit, Sherlock. Excuse me. It says, the central demographic story of modern times is not just declining rates of childbearing, but raising rates in singledom, a much more fundamental shift in the nature of modern societies. That could be a tacit nod towards MGTOW, and guys just turning away from the whole thing because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It says relationships are not just becoming less common, but increasingly fragile. In Finland, it is now more common for couples who move in together to split up than to have a child, a sharp reversal of the historical norm. I'll cover Finland later. And then we have graphs. Decline of couples are the steepest among people without a degree. Here's Britain, here's America. The MGTOW started about 2000. If you go up, you see a sharp decline. The educated Americans, no matter what the race, they were behind the curve that the blue-collar Americans were going down, and it raised a little bit to about 2005, and then that also started to decline as the educated Americans saw that women were not wanting to go with ordinary guys and they're just totally pursuing them, and they decided to wonder why. So they did asking around, and they found that the blue-collar Americans saw that women in America were becoming too toxic, and we have the current drop in both categories. As in here in Britain, MGTOW started around 2000. The British working class cottoned on and dropped. The British system is mostly class-based. It dropped a bit. Then Daddy wanted a heir to his empire, so that rose a bit, and now it's starting to drop because the British educated classes have seen how toxic women are in my country, so they decided to follow their working class brethren. And it says, but the rise of singledom and relationships disillusion is less rosy, especially considering the drop in relationship formation, the steepest among the poorest, i.e. the working classes. Of course, many people are happily single. That could be a tacit nod to guys that go in their own way. The freedom to choose how to spend one's life and who, with or without, is to be celebrated. But the wider data on loneliness, but guys have hobbies, women don't, and dating frustrations, that's women on TikTok, suggests not all is well. And then he goes on about the global trend from East Asia, Latin America, MENA, wherever that is, South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Western countries. And he says, while an almost worldwide decline, and why now the fact that this is happening almost everywhere all at once points to broad changes acting across borders than country-specific factors. The broad changes are women are becoming infected with the feminist mind virus, and they're only going after the top 10 and 1% of men, because they all think they're all 9s and 10s, even though in reality they're just average at best. And it goes the proliferation of smartphones and social media has been such an inglorious shock. Geographical differences in the rise of singledom broadly track mobile internet usage, particularly among women, whose calculus in weighing up potential partners is changing. This is consistent with research showing social media facilitates the spread of liberal values and boosts female empowerment. All the other MGTOW channels, they've all been saying that for years and years and years, and the establishment's only cottoned onto it. The welcome to the curve. Now you know how we feel. And then women's internet age has grown in different regions, and then it goes the graphs about birth rates decline in many countries: Finland, Mexico, Peru, Korea, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey, and in America. Now all these countries, I'm sure all the guys in these countries, they've all have heard of MGTOW. Men going their own way, men guarding their own wallet. They've all seen what women are like in their own countries, and then they decided that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And then it's more yada yada. It says, a world of rising singledom is not necessarily better or worse than one filled with couples and families, but it is fundamentally different to what has come before, with major social, economic and political implications, i.e. as the birth rate goes down, the less people are buying stuff because more women buy stuff than guys, and that has political implications because companies start going out of business because they can't sell any stuff because there's not enough people to buy their stuff. We are faced with a conundrum. Is this what people really want or not? What needs to change? What needs to change is the divorce laws in the female-friendly family courts. Now that's the Financial Times. To support that in the Atlantic, this was done on the 3rd of February 2025. This was done, as I said, January 11th, 2025. This is more or less you can click on that, you get the audio text of the article. And he said, perhaps you've not heard young people aren't dating anymore. News media and social media is awash in commentary about the decline in youth romance. That would be on TikTok. It's visible in the corporate data. That means the bottom line showing people are not buying stuff, with dating app engagement taking a hit. A lot of dating apps are going bust. And it's visible in the survey data with the shape of 12th graders who say they've dated have fallen from 85% in the 1980s to less than 50% in the 2000s. I don't know what age 12th graders in America are, but they've grown up seeing what happens to their friends, neighbours, family members, male ones that have got divorced, and they decided they're not going to go down that road. So from the 80s to the 2000s, you're looking at 20 years. If they were, say, 8 years old in that, they're 28 now. They've become an adult and they've seen what's happening with women and the dating scene and decided, I'd rather go MGTOW, look after myself and better myself, than go down that road. It says with the decline particularly steep in the last few years. Well, in the last few years we got the fourth wave feminism kicking off, and that's focused men's minds right across the United States. And then it says, naturally young people's habits are catnip to news commentators, but though I consider the story of declining growth romance important, I don't find it particularly mysterious. Well, at least this author has got cottoned on to the reasons. Then it drops down, says American adults are significantly less likely to be married or live with a partner than they used to. The national marriage rate is hovering at near an all-time low, with the share of women under 65 who aren't living with a partner has grown steadily since the 1980s. You drop back to that, the 12th graders, young girls, the you go girl, you can do everything you want. Why? I don't need no man. And this is the result. And then people's lives are diverse, their wants and desires, circumstances, yada yada yada. A marriage and partnership can be things threatening love, sex, someone to gossip with, someone to remind you to take out the trash. But practically speaking, Stone told me marriage is also insurance. Women have historically relied on men to act as insurance policies against the threat of violence, the risk of poverty. To some this might sound like an old-fashioned, even rhetorical description of marriage, but its logic applies. Men's odds of being in a relationship today are slightly correlated with their income. The first question, what do you do for a living? Women do not typically invest in long-term relationships with men who have nothing to contribute economically. The shorts, when a guy is 18, he has nothing. When a woman is 18, she's got everything. A guy doesn't hit his stride till he's in his late 20s or early 30s. Women in their late 20s and early 30s are on their decline. And it says, In the past few decades, young and especially less educated men's income has stagnated, even as women have charged into the workforce and seen their college education rates soar. For single non-college educated men, average inflation-adjusted earnings at age 45 have fallen 25%. In the past half-century, for the country as a whole, average real earnings have more than doubled. A result of a lot of young men today just don't look like what women have come to think as a marriage material. And then more yada yada yada. I'll naturally leave all these links below so you can read his articles yourself. Now, it's not just in America. This is the German site, Population Europe, the network of Europe's leading demographic research centres. And data show that young Europeans today are starting fewer lasting committed relationships than young people did in the past. This is considered considerable implications for health and well-being as well as the birth rates. The singlehood is increasing in Europe. 1 in 7 young adults here in Europe are living alone, and many have no romantic partner. That could be a tacit nod to European men who are 18 to 45. They go in MGTOW and decide the best route is to go on their own, because women in their own countries are becoming so toxic and getting too picky. He says couples' relationships have become more fragile. Nordic couples who move in together are less likely to stay together, marry or have a child. But Nordic women, especially Swedish women, are extremely picky. And then yada yada yada. Now this graph is in Finland. Basic income, middle income and high earners, women and men. You notice there's more basic incomes Finnish men than there is basic incomes Finnish women. Middle income, high income, but you notice 30%, 22%. There's less high earning Finnish men than there is high earning Finnish women being married. It's 18 to 45-year-olds. This could be going up. I'd like to see some data from next year or the year after to see if there's any change in that. But there's more guys in Finland that are single and not bothered with marriage, even the high earners, than there is single Finnish women. And then we go more yada yada, and that's that article. The last thing to keep this video on the short side, I found this, Forbes. This was done July 30th this year, or about last week. The state of dating in America, emotional cheating ranks higher than physical cheating. If you drop down, where is it? Where the people meet on dates in America, and the various age groups, but that's not it. If you're in America, which states fall in love the quickest? So if you're an American, you pick the state you're in. Say that one, Illinois, 13% say I love you in the first 3 months of dating. But Oregon, only 9% say I love you in the first 3 months of dating. But the hot spot in America, both weather-wise and love-wise, is Arizona. 46% say I love you in the first 3 months of dating. In California, 37%. And in Maine, where I would go, 33%. And another hot spot is Massachusetts. And what do people consider as cheating? Now, if you drop down, these are things that consider cheating. Partner dreaming about someone else in a romantic way, partner flirting with somebody else, partner still having an online dating profile. And we've got overall, male and female. Now if you look at the list, apart from the first one, females, the percentage is, apart from that, is greater than men. The flirting with somebody else, 37.8%, 42.9%, which means a woman's jealous. Then liking someone in a selfie, 34, 29, 35, 42. Predominant, most of them, the female is all higher in percentage than men. And what does each state consider as cheating? The state romantic relationship dreaming, 66% of people in California and 66% in Rhode Island said dreaming about someone in a romantic way was the biggest offence. In other words, you're cheating if you're thinking of somebody else. States which consider accidentally romance daydreaming as cheating: Arizona, New York and Washington. States which are likely consider one case of sexual intimacy outside of the relationship, in other words, it's sleeping with somebody else you're not in a relationship with: 61% in New Hampshire, 61% in Tennessee, 59% in Nebraska. And states most likely to consider a partner with an online dating profile to be cheating: Tennessee, Montana, New Jersey and Indiana. And it goes on, states most likely to consider their partner kissing somebody else to be cheating: in New Hampshire, Nebraska, Montana, Tennessee and West Virginia. So if a guy in those states happens to kiss a family member or a relation at a social event, in the eyes of his partner, if he has one, that is cheating. And it says, whether it's conversation about cheating, how each partner feels in a relationship, or what the most important part of one's relationship really is, it's important to look inward, realizing what roles we play when it comes to disagreements and issues. And that's it. But it goes back to the relationship recession in America and in the world. Recessions have a habit of creeping up on the economies. But what happens when we get into a relationship depression? Are things going to get bad here in Europe or extremely bad in America? I'll try and find someone else about this, because this is starting to have the impact on all sectors of academia and government, because there was a fall in birth rate in 2013, just a little over 5 years away, with 52% of American women childless and single. We're going to see even more, this becoming more dramatic. Right, I think I'm on the 20 minutes now. I try to keep it a bit short, but these articles tend to go on and on and on, so you'll have to leave it at that. So, you know the routine, people like, dislike, etc. is completely up to you. So, until next Monday, that's it from me. Bye-bye.